If it wasn't for her family and her love of them, she'd have told the council as much. Probably more. She wished she was powerful enough to handle them, make short work of them, and maybe send them to some deserted island in the middle of nowhere and see how they liked being cast-outs. Problem was, they held more power in their pinky fingers than she did in her entire body, and she was hardly a wimpy witch. Far from it. The Paranormal Bureau of Investigations, PBI, would be all over her if she dared step out of line again. They had her dead to rights on a magical infraction that had nearly cost a mortal their life. But the truth of the matter was she'd been framed. Everyone always claimed they were innocent. But Deri really was. She was only guilty of falling for a smarmy, lying son of a bitch dark sorcerer who had everyone else convinced he was on the side of right and good. Asshole. Chad Miston lied as easily as he breathed in air. He had a way about him that made others hang on his every word. Deri had been guilty of as much in the beginning. She'd thought the man hung the moon. Little did she know he drew his power from darkness and preyed upon witches. She'd been the latest victim in his quest for power, and for some reason she'd become his obsession. Turning him down had been out of the question. She'd done it anyways, and was now paying the price for her actions. Stupid PBI bought every single misrepresentation that slid off Chad's snake-like tongue. In the end, Deri had been lucky they'd only cast her out of the magical community and exiled her, banning her from using her powers. They could have locked her away for life or demanded her death. The infraction had been that significant. The only reason they cut her some slack and gave her another chance, so long as she started over and gave up what she knew, was because of her father's pull with them. The second chance meant leaving her family. She was close to her sisters and her parents, but even they knew she had no choice. She had to go and make a clean break, or she'd spend the rest of her life sitting in some remote facility that was warded to look like something it wasn't, like an abandoned warehouse, with a bunch of other supernatural lawbreakers. That held little appeal. She sighed. Starting over was a bitch. She'd been a certified public accountant and had managed to get a fair number of steady clients, enough to open her own office. She'd no longer worked for anyone else and had been doing well for herself. None of that mattered. It wasn't as if she could hand out a resume with her credentials, not without raising a giant red flag for Chad to find her easily. She had to begin anew, or else. Instead, she was in Grove Bluff trying to start over. Damn Chad and damn his ins with the PBI. Love was for fools. She'd never make that mistake again. No, she was not going to ever put her heart on the line or trust a man fully again, especially not a supernatural male. She'd find herself some unsuspecting, clueless human and eventually settle down once she'd figured out what she was going to do with her life. Until then, she'd work whatever jobs she could find and do her best to stay below the PBI's and therefore Chad's radar. She had been a resident of Grove Bluff for exactly 2 weeks, and so far Dagger's Edge Pub had been recommended again and again as a place to go for a job. What a strange name for a watering hole. The locals claimed the owner needed help with running the place and its day-to-day activities, along with managing the books. They said he had one girl who worked for him, but that was it. Since she was beyond qualified for such a job, Deri was hoping she'd be able to land it. The catch was, she couldn't exactly hand him a slip of references or announce just how qualified she was. Well, she could, but the minute he looked into it all to check if she was telling the truth, Chad would be all over her. That just wasn't an option. There were no visible signs from the front of the pub announcing the place was looking to hire, nor had she seen any ads in the local newspaper or online for that matter. The air smelled of pending rain, and she glanced off in the distance, her gaze skimming over the ocean. It certainly looked like rain was on the horizon. Great. Just what the area needed. More rain.